Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now today, I want to tackle the topic of augmented analytics and the future of data analytics in enterprises, especially as almost every organisation of any size anywhere in the world is now putting a much stronger focus on real-time analytics and making data-driven decisions. And augmented analytics is one of the latest data and analytics trends and is gaining considerable traction, because many organisations have realised the importance of big data and its role in decision making right across the business. However, the sheer volume of data available to organisations is making effective interpretation a real challenge, to say the least. And according to Forrester Research, less than 0.5% of all data is ever analysed and used. That's shocking, isn't it? Also, a mere 12% of enterprise data is used to make decisions. So there's a bit of a disconnect here from what I'm reading about in articles and what's actually happening in organisations. And to make matters worse, the growth of IoT and connected devices is expected to generate 79.4 Zeta Bytes of data across 41.6 billion devices, according to an IDC forecast. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about this and the changes that are going to be needed to make sense and make those data-driven decisions. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to India so we can speak with Rohit Maheshwari about all this and much more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Well, I'm a dreamer. I build products for a living and I love the world of data. I truly believe with software, one can do magic. My passion is to help businesses leverage AI better. As a person, I'm a traveler, hopefully a good citizen, a husband, and a father of two wonderful girls. My name is Rohit Maheshwari.
For people that might be hearing about Subex for the very first time, can I ask that you set the scene and tell the listeners a little bit more about the kind of problems that you're solving with your technology?
Subex is a software platform company. At Subex, our vision has been to enable enterprises build trust in digital ecosystem. We have been in business for well over 25 years. In fact, one of the earliest product companies out of Bangalore in India. Some of the world's largest telecom operators use our products for decision analytics. And our flagship platform is Hypersense. Hypersense aims to accelerate enterprise adoption of AI. The platform itself is a no-code AI orchestration platform and helps in creation of AI solutions, operationalize them, and it enables consumption. I would like you to consider the platform as a layered cake. And on top of the platform, we offer a number of different solutions such as fraud, assurance, Customer 360, product performance, among others. The platform is DIY, where besides the solutions we offer, our customers can build their own solutions.
And we will have people listening to the podcast today all over the world, and we are surrounded by a lot of big buzzwords in business technology, such as augmented analytics, and it can be quite an intimidating and daunting space for many. So one of the reasons I record this podcast every day is to try and simplify and help businesses understand the value in this technology. So for any business leader listening, how can an organization adopt augmented analytics technology, including connecting disparate and live data sources, finding relationships within data, creating visualizations, and ultimately helping human users effortlessly share their findings across the entire organization, because that's where they need to get to, isn't it?
Yeah, Neil, let me try and break down the journey of analytics from data to action. One typically begins with data ops, where you essentially ingest data, massage it. It's also called a wrangling of data, and make it ready for application of analytics. So that area itself is called data ops. That's typically the first step in analytics. Get data prepared for analytics and AI. The second step is to then understand data and build AI models, right? Machine learning models, right? So that's where you do ML ops. You build models, you train and tune models, you observe models for performance, and then you try to operationalize these models. This is the second step. The third step in typical AI-driven analytics is where you put the models into operations and then consume the output. So consumption could be in form of dashboards, which execs or operations folks watch and make decisions. It could be in form of automated actions where, for instance, you can decide to automate provisioning of a certain service to a certain segment of customers, etc. So that's the complete journey. Data ops, ML and model ops, and consumption. Now, the challenge in analytics essentially is we have been collecting increasingly complex data, and it can be quite daunting to prepare data for AI. Typically 70 to 80% of effort in data science goes towards making this AI worthy and AI ready. That's where augmented analytics can play a significant role. AI driven data preparation can help data scientists understand what's in the data and therefore identify what sort of features are relevant for analytics and ML. Similarly, in terms of model ops, or where you create models and operationalize them, there is this whole new science of auto ML, auto features, etc. Right, where you automate the work instead of having to rely on expert data sciences every time. You also bring in a whole lot of drag and drop and no code elements to try and bring business closer to be able to build their own models. And finally, the consumption. In the consumption layer, of course, you're trying to leverage AI with natural language querying, with natural language generation of insights, which are infinitely more intuitive than a traditional spreadsheet or a dashboard or what have you. So I think there are several things augmented analytics can do to ease this journey of data to actions or data to insights, and augmented analytics can therefore be extremely empowering and really accelerate adoption of AI and analytics in an enterprise.
And just to bring to life what we're talking about here, do you have any examples or use cases of how AI-driven insights could actually help reduce costs, boost revenue for enterprises along with the entire value chain? And I mean, everything from personalization and lead generation to pricing, churn management, business forecasting and network optimization. And the reason I list all those things is we all hear about the technology, but for those decision makers, they're the real deliverables that they're chasing, aren't they?
Absolutely. I truly believe that AI-driven analytics has the capability to add in terms of revenue uplift or cost reduction across the data value chain, like you mentioned, right? Be it personalization and intelligent campaigns. For example, with 5G right around the corner, in fact, 5G has started getting rolled out in some markets already. The promise really is to be able to do, I'll use a use case, right, to illustrate my point. The promise is to be able to engage with fans of a sporting event, for example, with real-time AR, VR content, right? So how do you decide which of my customers should I be running intelligent campaigns? How do I personalize content based on fan behavior in the past so that I get the best uplift to the product being consumed and I ensure my customers who really are looking for a specific type of content are in fact served this content in real time. We are talking about live sporting events here. I mean, the same can be extended to gaming, etc. Right? So all of this personalization, intelligent campaigns, getting your product pricing right, can in fact, when AI and analytics are leveraged right, they can deliver significant uplift in revenues, right? Similarly, is the case with the use cases around fraud, credit risk, assurance, and risk management. I mean, those are all use cases related to optimizing or reduction in costs, right? So, on one hand, you're trying to address the issue of increasing revenues. On the other hand, you can leverage AI and analytics to reduce costs. In fact, Subex has played a significant role over the last 25 years, helping enterprises manage these risks, right? And finally, you spoke about infrastructure, network. I mean, in a typical business to serve, they also have a digital environment, a network. In a telco, you have the entire telco network being operated. So how do you make sure you invest in building the network in the right pockets? How do you make sure you provide a certain degree of bandwidth in the telco parlance, in a data network parlance, to places where your most profitable customers exist? So making sure you optimize the spend in the way you build your infrastructure while catering to your most profitable customers are all related to reduction in cost and increasing in revenue. So there you go. Number of different use cases. I can in fact go on and on and on. But again, as I mentioned, I'm absolutely convinced about the value of this.
And I think those use cases bring it to life and also bring to life the ROI of decision analytics for any enterprise of any size, wherever they are in the world. But I'm curious, from the conversations you're having with your clients and customers, what are the typical roadblocks to AI adoption for decision analytics that you come across?
So I think based on all the conversations that I have been having with customers, I think there are a number of reasons why adoption is typically challenging. Number one, while CXOs recognize the value, in most cases, AI-driven analytics has remained in silos and in experiments, right? So it's sort of scattered, and true end-to-end value is not necessarily implemented, right? So it's not orchestrated, it's not implemented well. That's problem number one. Problem number two, when you go to a typical enterprise as compared to, let's say, a hyperscaler, a digitally native enterprise, I'm talking about traditional enterprise, they all have a combination of legacy infrastructure and modern new infrastructure, right? And data definitely exists in silos in all these cases. They are not built around data. These businesses are not built around data, but data is a byproduct. What it does is, for good AI-driven analytics, you really require access to data. And the silos of data makes it really slow and creates a barrier. The third problem is availability of unified AI and data stack. For those enterprises who are cloud native, this is not really a problem. I mean, cloud transformation or enterprises built in cloud have access to a number of innovative services out there. But think about your traditional enterprise. Think about a bank or a telco or a utility, right? They do not have access to AI and data stack, a unified integrated AI and data stack, slowing down their adoption. And all of this means that their ability to attract and retain good talent is always under pressure. So I think these are some of the biggest reasons creating roadblocks to AI adoption.
And I'm curious, what are the main market drivers for AI that you're seeing? Because you're somebody working right in the heart of all this. So what would you say those main market drivers for AI are?
Again, right? So like I mentioned, I believe when businesses want an answer, a CXO wants an answer to a complex question, today it is possible to respond to it in to such strategic questions rather quickly.
Yeah.
In the past, it would take a couple of months to get to that answer, and all of this is possible, thanks to AI-driven analytics. Data and AI are not only able to find answers faster, but are also creating transparency around issues that have always remained murky. Right? Let's take the example of pandemic and the desire to contact trace in an attempt to isolate, let's say, exposed people. In the past, I would imagine one would have to rely on very complex, surveys, which largely would have, given the pace at which the pandemic has hit us all, remained ineffective. But thanks to magic of sensors on board mobile phones and geolocation tracking, today it's possible to very effectively trace accurately, efficiently, yet in a secure and private manner. I think that's a great example of how AI can impact businesses and why AI has become such a main market driver. I think unstructured data is particularly difficult to utilize, especially thanks to its complexity and building and maintaining cutting edge algorithms. But thanks to tools that allow citizen data scientists to bring their business critical understanding and leverage AI, I think even this barrier is essentially getting crossed.
Excellent. And it was only a couple of years ago, really, that IT departments had that bad reputation for taking over a year to deliver any project. And the world has completely changed now. And I think it was the CEO of Microsoft that said just last year that they experienced 2 years of digital transformation inside 2 months as the world dramatically changed. So how do you think leveraging augmented analytics can help greatly accelerate transformation projects in enterprises too? Because there just seems to be this desire to get things out there and delivered so much more quicker now.
Yeah. So at heart of the way we see augmented analytics, Neil, there are two things. One is AI-driven augmentation of the whole analytics journey. And second is the fact that increasingly we are seeing a proliferation of no-code platforms. Hypersense is one such platform. It's a completely no-code platform. So the way I see this, data science teams can build models with miraculous capabilities, but it's unlikely that they can solve highly specific business problems on their own. Data engineers and scientists may not understand the subtleties of what to look for, and therefore it is very important and very critical to pair them with domain experts and business analysts. Whereas when you look at the business analysts on the ground, business knowledge comes from them, right? It is especially important in terms of, leveraging on-ground business knowledge to interpreting data, understanding cultural nuances to avoid incorrect conclusions. I truly believe augmented analytics can deliver the power of data science and AI right into the hands of business analysts. I think the way I look at it, and I promise to my customers, you bring your business critical thinking, you bring your business acumen, and I will show you magic happen with augmented analytics.
Love that. And I'm curious now, what's next for Subex and what excites you about the road ahead and where you go from here?
Well, our journey has been that of a products company, and we have evolved now to a platform company. Our vision is to enable enterprises build trust in digital ecosystem and to enable wider adoption of AI in analytics. I see ourselves evolving from a platform to an ecosystem player where we collaborate with our customers and community at large to solve the most pressing problems in business by leveraging AI and analytics. So I think we are evolving. We have evolved from a products to a platform company, and I see ourselves evolving from a platform to an ecosystem player. And that truly excites me, Neil.
Before I let you go, there's a question I always like to ask my guests. We've talked about your career and where Subex is heading, but I'm also interested in the kind of songs and pieces of music that have been the soundtrack to your life or helped you in your career or just helps you get your head in the zone when you're trying to do some work or meet a deadline. Is there a particular song that stands out for you?
I think Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. It's the soundtrack of when I was being brought up, the one which helps me zone in. I think Born to Run is also his autobiography. I would highly recommend your listeners to read the book, listen to the song. It's fantastic.
It really is. And I think we must be men of a similar age because I grew up with that too. And the Bruce Springsteen's, I think it was 73 to 85 box set. And of course, that Born to Run song. What a tune. That will be proudly added to the Spotify playlist. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. But before I let you go, could I ask that you remind everyone listening of where they can find Subex online and also contact your team if they have any questions?
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, www.subex.com is our website. You can write to us at info@subex.com. I can be personally reached at rohit.maheshwari@subex.com.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I've got so much from the conversation, real valuable business insights as well of how technology can transform an enterprise. But more than anything, just thank you for your time and sharing your story with me today.
Thank you for having me, Neil.
So a huge thank you to today's guest for talking about how organisations can adopt augmented analytics technology, including connecting those disparate and live data sources, finding relationships within that data, creating visualizations, and helping human users effortlessly share their findings across the entire organisation. That is where the magic happens. And I also enjoyed learning about how AI-driven insights can help reduce costs, boost revenue for enterprises across the entire value chain, from personalization and lead generation to pricing, churn management, business forecasting, and network optimization. So although we're talking about technology that's going to bring all this data together and help companies make sense of it, it's business-orientated tasks that are going to be brought to life and enable those data-driven decisions. But that's what I took away from today's guest. What about yourself? Please share your insights, experiences, stories, whatever they may be, by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, just @Neil C. Hughes, and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk, where you'll find over 1,600 interviews, as well as the shows I host with Citrix and Netgear too. So a big thank you to today's guest for joining me on the podcast, and an even bigger thank you to each and every one of you for joining me too. Hopefully you'll join me again tomorrow so we can do it all again. But thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.